Welcome to Easy Peasy Books, From Author to Authority, the lively and engaging podcast for business professionals who've always believed they have a book in them. I'm your host, Jillian Whitney. Join me as I chat with authors and industry experts from all around the world to explore simple strategies to write, publish, and leverage your business book. Whether you're an entrepreneur, executive, or an employee, this podcast is for you. Woohoo! And we're live once again on another Tuesday, and today's G-Force coming at you today. So we've got Jillian and G in the house today, and we have a fabulous topic, which what we're actually going to be talking about is the author's ascent, navigating the levels of the publishing mountain. And we've got a lot to talk about, but before we get stuck in, I want to welcome G, and I hope that she will tell everybody who she is and what she does, and then we'll get chatting.
Well, I think the most important thing to say is I'm an official first-time author as of last year. So for those of you who do not know, I'm Gehan Haridy-Ardanowski, G for short, as I always say, and known as the transition magician and non-evil HR pro. And that's actually in part what my book is about. But I'm a fractional HR consultant, really with a twofold approach to human resources, where I do fractional HR for small to mid-sized companies, and I also do personal branding or work on personal branding with professionals and basically simplifying it. So happy to be here.
Yay. It's very, very exciting. And I have my copy of your book here, and it's been exciting and, being part of the journey. And I love it. And it's great. And so what's so cool about our topic today, G, is that both you and I can talk to the different levels of ascending that publishing mountain. And sometimes we go, not necessarily in a straight line, that's life, right? You never go in the straight line, but there's many different ways to get your name in print. So we'll kind of leave solo author because that's sort of the summit, getting to the very, very top of the mountain. So let's kind of just start at the beginning, and let's start with, what do we feel is the first way that you can get your name in print that's probably being mentioned in a book? So can you talk to that?
Yes. So I should preface all of this with, it has been my lifelong dream. I love two things. I love speaking, but writing my entire life. I've always wanted to write a book. And it's always literally been in the back of my mind. Just need to write a book at some point. And I know there are many of you out there who feel similar. So I know I'm not alone. And a few years ago, a couple of things happened, actually. I was contacted not once but twice by a couple of individuals. Tina Morel, may I permit?
Yes.
I don't have the books in front of me, but Tina Marie Woolfield reached out to me. I want to say it was in 2019 timeframe for her book, Stop, Collaborate, and Listen. And she wanted to write a little piece within it just about an experience that she and I had at a Michigan HR day. So it was really cool. It was memorable for her. So just sticking out for someone. And then a few years later, I was contacted by Heidi Torres here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for her book of the CEOs of Networking. And Heidi Torres is amazing. She's a friend of mine here locally. And when she reached out to me, she did so because she wanted to make a reference to my LinkedIn profile and just her perception. And I even said, hey, LinkedIn profiles can change. Of course, we know that. But she thought enough of me at the time to put me into her book. So there's two books right there. And then the third was when, should I
go? Keep going.
Okay, so I'm motivated by that. Yay, I was mentioned in books. And, to be truthful, I didn't really display that to the world. I made announcements on LinkedIn, but I didn't put that in my profile. I didn't list it in my headline, book mentions or anything like that. I literally I kept it quiet for no particular reason. But then in 2022, I was offered an opportunity to write a chapter, a collaboration, if you will, a book collaboration with several different authors, I believe 33 to be exact, because it was based on Clifton Strengths. And so there was some strategy right there. And Clifton Strengths is my passion, if you will. So my very good friend and Gallup coach, Jo Self, decided to write a book series. And within that, she wrote something based on careers. Career Strengths actually have that one right here. So my chapter is in this book on responsibility, which is my number one strength. And then, of course, the fourth part is my solo piece in 2024, right behind me. So
awesome. Awesome. I love it. I love it. So you literally have started at base camp, cheering, being mentioned, going up to the first level, which is being mentioned. So you actually get to see your book, your name in a book, which is quite a thrill. It is a thrill. It is a thrill when you see that. And then, of course, being a contributor, writing a chapter in a book, and then, of course, moving up to the top of the mountain, which is like going solo. And each one, I think, takes a different level of creativity and hard work. And of course, you have to have expertise or else nobody would mention you in the book, unless they're mentioning you in a bad way. And nobody wants to be.
Don't be that person, folks. Don't be that person.
No. We always want it that like people are mentioning you in a good light.
Yes.
But when you did a chapter, so let's just kind of go back to before you did your solo run. When you did a chapter,
which was in this one,
which is, it's wonderful that you contributed that. Can you kind of take people through what was involved with doing that chapter in a book?
Yes. So, I'm sure many people have heard different experiences, have been through them themselves. And I will say that this was rather fluid. And I even put in my post last week that I wrote on this topic that this was not pay to play or pay for play, however you frame it. I didn't pay. I didn't even ask. I was asked to be a part of this. So it was a very strategic project. Again, this was a friend of mine, someone who'd known me for many years in the Clifton Strengths space, and contacted me to write a chapter. And there was no, like, everybody get on calls, everybody market the book. It was literally just her name on the cover, Practical Strengths, but we're a part of it. So it felt very positive because, again, from the context of I knew the author, who was a friend, a trusted person, wasn't going to mucky up anything because Clifton Strengths in the Gallup space is renowned. So I knew that it was a trusted collaboration, and I'm very pleased to this day with how that came out.
That's nice. So when you did that chapter, did you kind of feel you should get an author credit and go and create an Amazon author page or anything like that? Or you just said, no, I was an industry expert invited to be a part of this project, and that was it? That was the extent of your ownership of that?
Exactly. There was no other ownership. There was no suggestion or requirement go out and, get in that, the what is it? The review, the pre-release reviews,
like a launch team.
Thank you. There was none of that. There was none of that, and it felt that's part of it too. It felt very genuine and sincere. It was literally just a project that I was a part of, but I didn't expect anything from it either. To be truthful, I didn't even think along those lines. I was just proud to be a part of something. And that is now, it is listed though on my LinkedIn profile. Now, mind you, the 2 book mentions are not listed on my LinkedIn profile, but I'm proud of the fact that I collaborated again, or contributed. And I guess those are used rather interchangeably, but I'm proud of this. And it is, again, something that I wrote. I was tasked to write it, or asked, if you will, for a very specific purpose. So it was more meaningful, I feel, that way. So
I can totally understand that. And I know from my own personal experience, I was actually asked to do a chapter in a book. And when I did all my work, I submitted my chapter, and it was not pay to play. It was upfront that I would not get any royalties, but that just I would have visibility having my chapter. And at the time, I was not an author, so I thought, okay, this might be a good entrance way to get into writing a book, because I had been hemming and hawing and not writing my own book. So I thought, okay, this was a positive. And unfortunately, I wrote my chapter, submitted my chapter, and then the book got put on hold, and then the book got canceled. And it was very disappointing because I did all that work. There was no contract. So, and, to be honest with you, I wouldn't have pursued any problem anyways, but it was just kind of like, be careful, because you can have a good experience like what you did, where you did the work, you put out, and there's your book, and, you're part of it and wonderful. And you can be like me, do all the work, and then it goes nowhere. And what if it was a pay to play? That would be even worse, because then I would not only be out my time, I'd be out my time and my money. So lots of things to think about. Do you agree?
Couldn't agree more. And, again, it's starting out with that intention, as we always talk about. And I've learned a lot in this, and I'm sure we'll talk more at some point, but just in case, I wanted to slide this in for some, context even. Oh, actually, we're going to get to the co-author piece, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
I'll
Well,
tell my
actually,
story, but
let's go one step, but one step before that is a collaborator is not necessarily a co-author, but a collaborator. So I'm just going to pop up Jeff Young's book for an instance, in that I collaborated on this, but that merely meant writing the foreword for the book, which, again, people should really think about. You don't ever want to write a foreword for a book that you have not read or been a part of or something, because your reputation's on the line. So of course I highly endorse Jeff. So absolutely wrote this forward. He didn't even ask me, I just offered. But I was a collaborator in terms of, I helped edit the book. So I helped doing the developmental editing and structuring of the book, but I don't take on ownership. But of course, Jeff being Jeff Young, he wanted me to be on it, and he insisted I be on the cover. He insisted that, I be a part of it, but it's Jeff's content. So I support Jeff, but I don't try and take credit for anything. So
right.
That to me is being a collaborator. Now, what were you going to say before I rudely cut you off?
You know what? I forget, but I think I was just moving into, I know.
Collaboration, co-authoring.
Co-author. So again, to make it clear, so there's the mention, then there's the contributor,
right?
And then the collaboration contributor, and then co-author.
Right. Next step.
So, yes. So even to write a co-author piece, I haven't done this. So again, I was not a co-author in this. I was merely a contributor / collaborator. But I had an opportunity at one point, not too long ago, to co-author with someone. And I will tell you immediately, because I think very, very highly of this person. He's a wonderful person. And the fact that he reached out to me with a very specific thing in mind, it got me thinking, oh, wow, a co-author piece might be fascinating. But, and then this is where it gets interesting. I thought, what does this even mean for me? The ownership, and how does this work? And I know, Jillian, I'll leave that to you to talk about, because I know you've co-authored. But I was very cautious on that. So I did a lot of thinking. I ultimately didn't do it for various reasons I'm sure we'll get into, but largely it wasn't going to be entirely mine. So, and there were some gaps in that.
Yes. And you have to think about it, because, there's the difference between being a co-author, because I have the book here. I was a co-author with Tina Jarvitt on this book. And there's a difference between being I should say the title for the podcast, which is Your Voice Matters. You'd think I wouldn't have to check the book. I would actually know the title of my own book. But we were co-authors for that, which means you are writing as a team approach. We've talked about the Michelle Squares doing the LinkedIn branding book. That's a good example. Lanier Johnston and Michelle J. Raymond doing Business Gold. So there's lots of people that we know that are co-authors, and you truly are partners, and you have to make decisions every step of the way. Some people have contracts. I personally speaking, Tina and I did not have a contract, but we had to work out royalties and how that's all going to work, and who's on whose Amazon account. There's lots of things that you have to think about. And so if you have an opportunity to co-author with somebody, but you don't already have an established relationship with them, I think you need to really think about it, because it's like going into a marriage. It truly is, because you're going to, that this is a long term. Nobody just writes a book and then you're done with it. It's like you have to think long term. How are you going to deal with that? What if you want to make revisions and updates, and how's that all going to go together? Who's going to pay for the editor and yeah, the artwork, the publishing? There's a lot to think about. Don't you agree?
Agreed. And I love that part about the trusted part, because at the end of the day, all of this ties back to our brand that we're always talking about, personal branding and how we're showing up to the world. And the last thing, and I know Jillian, you and I have talked about this, but the last thing we ever want to do is muck it up and do something that is out of our control, because that, even then, we're not entirely in control of that. So it has to be, truly something that you believe in, and that you want to be a part of, and that you're proud to put your face on,
Yes, yes.
or your
And
name on, if you will. So
exactly. And, I would highly recommend that if anybody is ever approached to do a co-author project by somebody who has already written books, go check out those books and make sure that you would be, that they meet your standard of how you want to do stuff. Because I know somebody who was part of a book project, and they were not happy with the results, but they did not do their due diligence. So it's like, you must go in with wide eyes open. Agreed?
absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay. So we're continuing to ascend the mountain, and you do the co-authoring, and a lot of times people will do the co-authoring. I was backwards. Tina and I were both backwards. We did our own book first, and then we decided to co-author, but it totally makes sense, and I would co-author again. It was a wonderful experience. But there really is something about writing the book yourself that you truly feel that you've ascended the top of the mountain, and you're at the summit, and you're planting the flag, because that book baby is yours. And you, and there's good and there's bad. To me, the good is it's yours, like, yay, you've done it. But the risk is that, like, well, if it's not well received, it's on you. Like, you can't say, well, I didn't like the way the publisher did it. It's like, well, you're the publisher. I don't like how it was edited. And it's like, yeah, but you went and hired the editor. So it's up to you. You take all the risk. So let's kind of turn it over to you, G, and talk about your experiences of getting up to the top of the mountain.
Well, and again, I speak to those of you who I know want to write a book. So hopefully those of you who I know want to write a book are listening to this. But interestingly enough, a lot of us go into this with, I want to write a book, but not necessarily having the game plan or what have you. And I started out writing a book actually a really, really long time ago, but it wasn't until about September of 2023, when I got a little more serious about it and started writing a draft. But then I shelved it. And I thought, okay, I'm kind of stuck right now. And what am I going to do? And I got preoccupied with other things. And then what happened and how this book came to be, and I lucked out on this, was because I did a Disrupt HR talk in April of 2024. And the Michelle B. Griffin, our great friend, who hopefully is listening somewhere, she actually, after the fact, she'd listened to my, or she'd watched my video, and she even suggested, hey, have you thought of writing, a business book? And I thought, okay, this might be a, lower hanging fruit, if you will, to get to where I need to be. So that was the intention with this book. And yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things where I knew for a long time I wanted to write a book. I just didn't quite get off the ground with my first book, which will be my next book, by the way. That stay tuned. So there's more on that. But yeah, it's pretty much it. And I went through the paces, and, of course, people marveled in the fact that I wrote it and published it in only a few months, but it was more of a mini book model. So for those not familiar, say around 10 to 12,000 words or so, give or take. And I already had the book pretty much written based on my talk. Of course, I expanded upon it. And that's another thing too, another quick book tip for those of you wanting to write a book. You already have it in you, so just get that out there. But as I know you like to say, but yeah. And, afterwards, the good thing is, and I've been pretty fortunate. I've had a lot of support. Oh my gosh, and I can see already some of the comments coming in, and for example, Tiffany Castago, she's a good friend of mine. She was the inspiration for the talk that prompted the book. So I set out again with intention in all I did, and at the end of the day, with that, I can tell everyone that because I knew somewhat of the plan and what the end result might be, I was comfortable with that. Even though we never really can predict how the sales will go or the critique will go or the reviews will go. So
Can I?
did that answer?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Now, I just want to ask you a question. How did it feel the day that you saw your book live on Amazon? How did that feel when it was like you knew your book baby was like out into the world?
It, very surreal. It was very surreal, ecstatic. And wow, I did this. And of course, people kept saying, oh my gosh, gee, I can't believe you did this in just a few months. And after all of the editing and oh my gosh, there were stories there too. I wrote stories within the book writing process just because it wasn't entirely as easy and fluid as it sounds. And Jillian, you and Devin obviously helped me publish my book, and I'll be forever grateful for that. But I went through all of these crazy processes with the cover. Oh my gosh, the cover was wrong from the get. And I had the, I won't even go into that, but that's a whole other topic. The cover was so off brand. The font was off brand. The way the book, it just, everything about it just, it didn't work initially. But then I just got the clarity and just kept plugging along. And lo and behold, I ended up with this, and I'm proud of it. It's my business book. It's not my legacy book per se, which is the book that I'd originally started writing previously, but I'm so proud of this. And to say, this is my book, no one can take that from me. I'm not buried in, and I say this with all the respect because I know of many, many, many book collaborators, but I'm not buried within, 50, 60 people. This is my own. And that's not to say that some of those collaborators on these massive projects won't eventually want to write their own books. But for me personally, I'd always, always wanted to write a book. So I knew that this was amazing. This was in itself, just contributing a chapter was wonderful. But I knew that next, tippy top, if you will, would be it for me. So I'm very, very happy, and I want to keep going. I want to climb more mountains.
I love it. I love it. Now I'm thinking Julie Andrews, spinning around, sound of music. I love it. I love it. So speaking of peeps, let's hop in and see our peeps today. So we have Jeff Young, who we have just shown his amazing book, Be Effective. Again, I have to look at titles so I don't screw them up. Be Effective on LinkedIn with the LinkedIn Guru. So we have Jeff Young. Looking forward to this G-Force conversation today. Yay. We're happy he's here on YouTube and also on LinkedIn. Greetings, G. Looking forward to hearing about your publishing journey. I love it. I love it. We have our buddy Kevin D. Turner in the house. He says, let's get this party started. Jeff and I are in the lobby. Coffee bar is waiting. I love it. Here's David. He says, geared up. Let's climb the mountain. Thanks, David Cause, for being here today. And Jeff is saying, I believe that the mountain might be more of a molehill. So I love it. I love it. And so let's see. We have Yolanda here. So one of your many wonderful people in your network, G. Hello, Jillian and G. So she's here cheering us on. I love it. G's party. I love it. I love it. Yolanda says official first time author. And I love first time because that's implying that it's like, and we'll wait for the next. We'll wait for the next. So it's so true. It's so true. And Phil Davis is here. He says, great to be here, friends. I love when we have all sorts of people popping in. Yay. Tiffany is here and she says, hello all. So thank you, Tiffany, for being here today. And she's chatting back to Phil. And look at everybody knows each other. I love these. I love that everybody, all these people,
friends. Everyone's amazing.
Everybody's here. Very inspirational. Yahira says very inspirational. And it is inspirational. It is inspirational. I think that, so many of us do have a book. And truly, if anybody has ever said to you, I think there's a book in that, or, I think, I could see how you could write a book in that, or you think it yourself. lean in, because there's probably something there. If one person says it to you or you think it yourself, there's a book in you. So Tiffany says, I love this conversation. Having been invited to a few different mentions, collaboration opportunities, and even co-authoring a book. Yeah, it's just the gamut of what you can be. And just as a tip, in this book that I did with Tina, we actually mentioned a lot of people in this book because it was about our experience at Uplift Live. And we actually went and put everybody's name in the back cover. And I think that's a good thing, that if you do ever write a book and you mention people, you know, put an acknowledgement in there, that those are always good things to do. So that just a little a thing, just a little thing, just a little thing. So they're all agreeing. I love it. So Tiffany says, I'd love to hear more of your thoughts on the pre-launch team and those requirements. My perspective has been an evolving one for sure. All right, G, you want to take that one?
Ah, I didn't have a pre-launch team. So, some people, and Jillian, you might even be able to better speak to this one because I know this is what you do, but I didn't have a pre-launch team. But what I did have, and actually lovely Tiffany here was a part of this, beta readers. So I had a group of beta readers who were, I think I had about 5 people total, yourself included, Jillian and Tiffany and a few others, who were in my trusted space, I knew would give me feedback on that draft, on my essentially finalized draft, and honest feedback. And so in that respect, like I had some thoughts already and some of that feedback, but what I did do was, ask everybody afterwards if you're willing to, help support, after the book is published, reviews, please, and things from whoever wants to support. And I did that for my network, and I'm still continuing to ask for reviews. So hint, hint, if you are out there and you've read my book and you have yet to write a review, again, it's a book that's not just for HR professionals. And the reviews even state that it's for business leaders and company owners and really people who just they're just tired of calling HR Satan and evil. So it's meant to be a fun book. But yeah, so I didn't really have a pre-launch team myself, but I do know that just in talking to some people, that's a sticky topic, Jillian. Like just in terms of the feeling forced with the marketing and then how much is involved even beyond that. And again, how much as a contributor or collaborator do you get on the back end? It sounds like a lot, and I'm not very clear on some of that.
Yes, and you did a great job of answering that question. And the thing with these pre-launch teams, theoretically, they're a wonderful idea. Like, every author wants a gazillion reviews the first day, so it totally makes sense. But the problem is that you walk this really fine line, especially if you're dealing with Amazon. And both G and I are publishing on Amazon, so we'll speak to that. And when you have a pre-launch team, you have to be very careful about giving people incentives, because that's against Amazon's terms of service. And so if you start saying, okay, I want you to be a part of my pre-launch team, and then that means you're telling people you need to read my book in advance. Then on launch day, I want you to go and buy it for, $2.99 or $1.99 or whatever, you're setting it at. And then I want a review, and then I want you to post it. And then I want you to send in the review, and we're going to have a drawing, and I'll give send you free books and consultations. And you can't do that. You can't offer gift cards and all these things. And I see a lot of people doing this, especially big name marketers. And I cringe at this. So sort of like what G says, one of the best ethical ways is having your beta readers, and you can have as many beta readers as you want. And you give them a PDF copy of the book, because some people don't know how beta readers work. So you just give them a digital version, a PDF copy of the book. And then they can write a review if they so choose. You can't demand it. It's be nice if they did. And you ask them, if you are willing to give a review, please just be honest. That's you're not saying, please give me a 5-star review, and you have to do it on the first day of the book launch. You just can't do that to people. So, it's a fine line. It's really a fine line. Thank you, Tiffany, for bringing this question.
Tiffany rocks. Tiffany's my girl.
She absolutely is. She says, I used to say collaborated. Now they're listing on my website as contributed, but the co-author is in my bio and website. Okay. That's really interesting. That's good. That's good. So, gee, I wanted to ask, yikes, Jillian. I don't know what the yikes was. Probably me going off on
the cringy stuff. Yeah.
On the cringy stuff. So, G, one of the things that you mentioned before we went to the comments was talking about your frustrations as an author. And I remember because I was in the DMs with you, in the trenches as you were moving towards launch day, just going, oh, am I ever going to get this cover right? And oven mitts and, just all the different. Now it's funny, but at the time it was not funny because I know you were like totally stressed, going back and forth, back and forth. And so you talked about covers and fonts and all these different things. So again, I just want to caution people that if you're part of a collaborative book project where, maybe you're one of, 60 authors in a book or something like that, you don't have that control. Like, what if you don't like the cover? What if you don't like the fonts that they use? What if you don't like the other chapters in the book? Like, your chapter rocks, but you just go, oh my gosh, these people, nobody even edited it. It's like the spelling was wrong. And what are these people even talking about? So sometimes the whole can be different than the sum of the parts. So that's just something to think about. So I'm glad that you talked about how you were so picky, but it was good that you were picky and it was great you had that control, correct?
Absolutely. And, at the end of the day, a lot of people, especially when you write a solo book, you start out thinking one thing and a certain date and a certain this or that, and things change. And this is the encouragement I want to leave people with, especially because I know some of you out there are going to want to write a book this year. I just know it in my core. And I'd love for you to DM me when this is over and let me know so I can support you. But truly, the most important thing to remember is that this is an evolving process and things change. No one's going to get on your case to say, well, you were supposed to have, this done by X date or that date. Make it a fluid process because with a solo book, it's your own. And it can be a wonderful thing. I have zero regrets. I will say this, zero regrets about any of the, like, I loved this book that I was a contributor / collaborator on. Absolutely love it because, again, it was a passion topic of mine and had been for years. And it was through a trusted friend and there was nothing spammy about it. There was no go out, market it, do XYZ, pitch to everybody, write the pre-reviews. There was none of that. It felt very fluid and genuine. But I will say there is nothing like, and back to your earlier question, Jillian, seeing your name on a book cover, like release day, and just knowing that the hard work that you put into it pays off. So just want to encourage everybody to keep climbing, if you will, to stick with this metaphor. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's an amazing experience. And
I love that.
Surround yourself with the right people. That's the other thing too, because there will be people who might say, okay, maybe you shouldn't do this or that. I was very fortunate that the few people in my circle, all encouraging. My beta readers were amazing. Obviously Jillian and Devin here, just amazing. I'm just giving them a quick plug, but I would not have had my book printed if it wasn't for all of these people. And so I'm happy. Is it like a million gajillion dollar bestseller? No, but it is a bestseller and it is mine and I can market it any way I want to. And
I love that.
Of that.
I love that. And it ties in with your speaking and it's very on brand. It's a really part of, owning your brand, and your book backs up that brand. So it all ties so nicely together. And the one final note I'd want to leave everybody on is it's okay to take each step of the mountain and just recognize, okay, being mentioned in a book is great and you should celebrate it. And being a contributor and, all these different parts are really, really good. And the only thing that I would always tell people is make sure you do your due diligence, make sure you do your homework, because being in print, it can be good, but it can also be not so good. So you just want to make sure that you're doing the best to protect your brand and your reputation. So just always, don't be so quick to say yes until you like look at everything. And if you ever have any questions, talk to me, talk to G. We're always happy to continue the conversation. So there we go.
Absolutely.
Any final words of wisdom you want to leave anybody with before we end today?
Honestly, it just goes back to, I know there are people out there who want to do this because you've DM'd me, people. You have. And so, G, you've inspired me. G, I want to get going. I know a few of you who are likely listening as we speak. So just do it. Just start the process. And again, like Jillian said, do your due diligence. Don't be so quick to say yes. As I mentioned earlier, I had an opportunity, really thought about it afterwards. I was excited. Yay, look at me. I might be a co-author. But then when I really drilled it down and looked at some of the other factors, I thought maybe not the best time. And the person was super gracious when I gave them a not right now type of answer. So just think about it. Be intentional and be excited. This is good stuff. And you're an author at the end of it. So that's the point.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for being here today, G. Thank you for everybody who's joined us for the live and who will be listening later on the replay or the podcast. And we'll be back next week. And so thanks, everybody, and have a great day. Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Easy Peasy Books, From Author to Authority. If you found value in today's episode, I'd be grateful if you could leave us a review. It helps other aspiring authors discover our podcast. To learn more about writing, publishing, and leveraging your business book, visit my website at easypeasybooks.com.